Hi everybody, today's LaserDisc is the director's cut of Spawn. And this is a film that I was actually pretty hyped for. My wife and I were talking about it, we watched it together, and we both had the same experience with it. We didn't see it in theaters, but we both went and got it right away from Blockbuster when it came out on VHS, right when it was in the new release shelf. We both took it home, and we were both equally disappointed. And actually, in rewatching it, I was hoping that my memory would not do it justice. I was hoping that it would actually be better than I remember, maybe just kind of a cheesy good time, who knows, maybe it'll be elements that I didn't appreciate as a kid, that I'd appreciate watching it again now for the first time since this came out, so the first time in like 20 years, but it's actually even worse than I remember. It is a terrible, terrible movie. It is the adaptation of the Todd McFarlane comics, Spawn, the story of an elite mercenary who is tricked into a situation where he is killed, and for 5 years, after 5 years, he is reborn still as an undead, supposed to be the leader of Hell's minions. He's changed into Spawn, given certain powers, and he has a bit of a demon guide with him, who's played by John Leguizamo, who is supposed to prepare Spawn for that role. And things go wrong. He ends up rebelling, without spoiling too much of the movie. So on and so on. It goes on pretty standard as far as an action flick. It's incredibly predictable. That's not necessarily negative for this type of movie, though. It can get away with that, particularly with superhero movies. At the time, there weren't quite as many that were very intelligently written as compared to some of the Marvel movies now, things like Logan, that type of stuff. Before the boom, I think superhero movies were very hit or miss. You had some classics, like some of the Batmans and stuff, and you also had some complete duds, again, like some of the Batmans and that type of thing. But yeah, this is one that I remember being super excited for because I love the art style. I didn't read too many of the comics of the series. I've read a handful of them. I had a handful of the action figures. Those are really cool. And I just really loved the art style. So even if it was something where the story fell flat or the acting wasn't the greatest, this was really promoted as far as being the big special effects spectacle. It was kind of this thing where like the art and the visuals and the style of it were really the draw more than anything else in the picture. And the problem is, if those had been as spectacular as we wanted them to be, this film would hold up. But they really weren't great. Even for the time, there were a few shots in here that are good. There are some decent makeup effects here, but the CGI, even for the time, is pretty awful. There are a lot of weird editing and design choices that I think just didn't work to the film's advantage. Overall, it's just not a very good-looking movie. I mean, even the sequences in Hell, the South Park movie did a better job with those than Spawn. A lot of it just looked pretty awful visually, and just those few instances where it does look great is nowhere near enough to have the visuals by themselves really hold up a rather mediocre movie. It really just isn't very good from a performance standing, as far as like the acting, as far as the writing and the storytelling. None of that holds up, and when you're relying on a single element and that element falls flat, the entire movie just crumbles. So it really just is an awful movie, and John Leguizamo's character in general is just annoying through the entire picture. He wasn't funny in the least, and he was in it too much. It was annoying. Really couldn't stand him, and it feels like a movie. It feels like a gritty, R-rated, sort of darker comic book movie that was forced into being something that was more along the lines of sell toys to kids type movie. It still wasn't quite as kid-friendly as something like Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, that type of thing. It was more along the lines of, I'd say, maybe Batman Returns, as far as like how kid-friendly it was, but it didn't even completely succeed in that way either. It just exists in this weird in-between where it's not good enough to appeal to adults, really, and it's not really put into the realm of being the kid-friendly comic book movie enough for it to be successful in that way either. So it's just kind of this weird mix in the middle that just falls apart completely. A movie that I was very disappointed in, but it doesn't hold up at all. It was bad to begin with, and I think it's even worse as it ages. One nice thing, though, I mean, if you do get it, this is a still pretty good addition as far as the look and the sound. It's a pretty decent. It's in its theatrical aspect ratio. So overall, if you do get it, this is a pretty nice release, and I am kind of happy that I got this. This is one I got for free. just because as far as I collect a lot of 80s and 90s movies, and even though it was not a great experience, this was an experience I remember from the 90s, and it was a pretty big deal at the time for a kid my age wanting to go grab that on VHS, and even though it was very disappointing. And it does have an audio commentary track featuring Todd McFarlane, director, the producer, and the visual effects supervisor. So it's cool extra when you get a commentary track on a Laserdisc. So as far as, it's a bad movie, but this is a pretty good release of that movie.